Welcome in to the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast. I'm Jeff Palermo along with Tiger Rag editor Todd Horne. On today's edition, we'll talk about Kim Mulkey's new contract, Joe Burrow getting paid, and we'll look ahead to the LSU Grambling State game. Today's edition of the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast brought to you by Paw Paw's Campers and Cars, pawpawsrvs.com, or you can give them a call at 1-800-728-CAMP or 1-800-728-2267.
Hey neighbors, we're not that far from where you are. Make that short drive to Paw Paw's Campers in Picayune and see our Wildwood, Catalina, Sportsman, and Zinger trailer lines and our Rockwood and Heritage Glen fifth wheel lines. From Houma to Hammond, Biloxi to Jackson, and Mobile and Pensacola, we're not that far from where you are. Come and see us.
You're gonna love the way we deal. Paw Paw's Campers City and Picayune. You're gonna love the way we deal.
Welcome back to the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast. Jeff Palermo along with Tiger Rag editor Todd Horne. Friday at the LSU Board of Supervisors meeting. No surprise after it was reported that Kim Mulkey would become the highest paid coach in women's college basketball. She ends up getting a 10-year, $36 million contract. It was approved by the LSU Board of Supervisors. There was one dissenting vote by board member Jay Blossman. But Kim Mulkey in 2 years ends up already obviously delivering the national championship. And because of her hard work, she receives this huge contract for a sport that is not a revenue-generating sport. Your thoughts, Todd?
I'm still trying to do all the math. And actually, Jeff, as you probably know from us both independently watching the LSU Board of Supervisors meeting and doing our best to listen to it, where it had some conspicuous mic cutouts and things like that.
Right.
I don't know why that was important to say, but I can't do the math. I mean, obviously this is, LSU is LSU Athletics, and it's a non-profit organization, so translated, that means they need to spend every dollar they get.
Right.
So that makes sense. It's not a typical business, so you can't really apply normal business to it. But apparently I'm not the only one that was a little bit confused by it, because board member Jay Blossman was also a little bit confused by it, and he was the only dissenting vote.
Well, Jay Blossman brought up a really good point, and you wish that they would do this maybe for all coaches' salaries, because he got caught with this. Maybe Jay Blossman is looking at what happened after Ed Orgeron received his huge contract, right? He gets this big deal, and there was really no reason to give him that contract or the size of the contract they gave him. It wasn't like Ed Orgeron was going to go coach the Dallas Cowboys next season, or he was going to take the Alabama job when Nick Saban retires, or go to any other SEC job. He had the job that he wanted, and LSU gives him all this money, and then, of course, they have to cut bait a couple seasons later because, Ed Orgeron just put his feet up on the table, and the program crumbled around him. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen with Kim Mulkey, because I think Kim Mulkey has shown that she is a proven winner, and there is a drive with her to be maybe the greatest women's college basketball coach in the history. And that means winning more national championships than Gino Auriemma or whoever else that may be still ahead of her. But what Jay Blossman was saying, well, why don't we just, when we make these contracts, say, instead of giving you a $150,000 bonus, let's just say we'll give you a $1 million bonus.
If you win a national championship.
If you win a national championship.
And if not, then if you have a bad year, then you don't get that money.
Because what Jay said is you can't, if let's just say LSU does not have a good season next year, or maybe 2 years from now, you can't go back and say, well, Kim, you only won 19 games. Right. I think you owe us some of this money back.
That's right. Give us some of the money back, because you didn't even make the NCAA tournament this year, Kim.
Now that would be the logical way to do it for everything, and even in professional sports, right? I mean, Josh Allen for the Bills, if he throws 15 more interceptions this season and they don't make it to the AFC Championship game, you tell Josh Allen, I think you should give us some of that money back.
It's interesting that you chose Josh Allen instead of Joe Burrow, but we'll be talking enough about Joe Burrow in a moment.
I was just thinking of a quarterback that may have cost them their team a trip to an AFC title.
Oh, okay. So now I get you.
All right, yeah.
But let's get back to Mulkey for a second.
Yes.
Because I think while I think Blossman was trying to do the math, at the same time that they increased her salary substantially to make her the highest paid women's basketball coach ever, surpassing Dawn Staley of South Carolina.
By a smidge, by the way. By a smidge.
And it's gradual.
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to take a couple of years before she surpasses her on an annual basis, but the total package is by far the largest ever.
Right.
But I guess my point is, or what I was going to try to say, I'm kind of forgetting it right now, which means it probably wasn't that important, but it was. She has added a perceived value not only to the LSU brand, which is very important, and I don't know how you place a value on that. Oh. Yes, LSU women's basketball is not a quote-unquote revenue generator, but Kim Mulkey is by far, I think, the best coach that LSU could have for that program as well as for the brand. And how do you place a value on that? So at the same time, they raised ticket prices. I meant to say that earlier. So they approved ticket price increase from $25 for general admission per game to $75 per game. So if you do a little math and you say they're drawing, let's say an average of 11,000 people per game. And I don't know when the price increase goes into effect. For all I know, it's immediate. I should know that, but I don't. But let's say that the tickets 2 years from now have graduated to where they're all paying $75 per game on average, and they're drawing 11,000 people on average. In 2023, 2024, women's basketball should draw about 11,000 people for 19 games. So you're looking at an increase. Actually, it's not an increase, but you're looking at a total take of about almost $16 million a year, which would put LSU on the cusp, women's basketball on the cusp of being quote-unquote profitable. But again, that's not the point because they're a nonprofit institution, and Scott Woodward seems to enjoy that.
Now, I think that 25 to 75, that's not per game. I think that's per season.
Well, then it's substantially less.
I don't think they're charging $75 per game.
Okay, so we need to do a little research.
Yeah.
You know, like Kim Mulkey says, Tiger Rag, do your research.
Well, I'll say this about Kim Mulkey, where I want to hit on the point that you made as far as what she's worth to the university, because if you remember when they hired her, LSU was obviously going through a difficult Title IX scandal at that time. And
is that over with?
I would say it's on the back page instead of the front page.
Okay.
And obviously more may come out on that. But she has turned what the reputation was for LSU when she was hired was it's a place where if you're a female, you could potentially not be protected by the university, especially if a football player is involved in a crime against you.
That's a very good point, Jeff. And she has enhanced that part, but of the equation, if you will. Very good point. But she's so much more than that, incrementally more than that, to the LSU basketball and women's basketball in general. Don't forget, what was it, 9 million people watched the NCAA championship, and you can credit Angel Reese with that. But you can also... But that's another aspect of it. There's all this money flowing through these sports right now. And, LSU's about to build a new strength training facility, $22 million. They had to raise the money for that. Where is all this money coming from, which now the same people that are donating to facilities or projects are donating to NIL through the collectives or directly? I mean, where's this money coming from?
I have no idea, Todd. I have for a state as poor as it is, that all this money continues to keep propping up. I shouldn't say propping up because the athletic department's more than just propped up. I mean, it's living on, it's living on Broadway Street, right? I mean, It amazes me. And there was all this talk, especially when Ed Orgeron was going through his troubles, and they were saying, well, they can't fire him. Look at the buyout. And I was just like, they'll find the money. And this is where this kind of goes back to Scott Woodward, Todd, is that This guy is not only a very smart man, he is able to get money. He is able to find these donors and persuade them, hey, I need to give Kim Mulkey a new contract. I need to get a new strength and conditioning building. I need to do this. I need to do that. And these donors say, okay, where do you want me to sign? And here's a blank check. Or, I know it's not that easy, but he is very persuasive with that. And that is one of the things that he does. And you can't, because none of this is really documented, right? We don't know. It's not like a campaign finance report and where you know exactly who's donating and what and how much. So you never know. So none of this is documented, but Scott Woodward, he's great at doing this.
Yeah, he is. You can't take that away from him.
And Todd, I don't want to sit here and say, going to what Jay Blossman was saying, I don't want to say that she does not deserve the raise.
No.
Because I do believe she should be paid in the same realm or same area of where Gino Auriemma is and Dawn Staley. She's worth all that. But I just thought what Jay Blossman said is exactly how it would work, but in today's world of sports, that's not how it goes.
Right, and that's a good point. I just want to mention that also two of her assistants,
yes,
Bob Starkey and
Gary Reedus.
Gary Reedus also got a few nickels to rub together in addition to her pay increase. And what about Burrow?
Well, yeah, I guess since we're on the money topic, we knew this contract was coming. Right? We knew that Joe Burrow was going to get a new deal before the start of the season. And it came out, and I don't think it's a coincidence, and I've read this. It came out right around the time, or right before the Kansas City Chiefs season opener against the Lions. And it was met, and the Bengals' biggest rival right now is not Pittsburgh, it's not Cleveland, it's Kansas City. And I think they did this to take a little bit of the showcase away from the Chiefs in playing in the first game. But past all that, Joe Burrow reaches an agreement with the Bengals, 5 years, $275 million extension that includes $219 million in guaranteed money, which makes him the highest paid player in NFL history.
It's just unbelievable. When you think back to the fact that in 2018,
yeah.
Joe Burrow, moving into the 2019 season, probably did not even think seriously about having an NFL career. Certainly wasn't on any NFL draft boards.
Yeah.
Goes through the 2019 season, has that greatest season ever, and I'll say that. It was the greatest season ever for a college quarterback. Becomes the Heisman Trophy winner, wins all the postseason awards, wins the national championship, wins the Heisman Trophy, becomes the number one pick in the draft, and my gosh, it worked because he has had, he's like one of the top-rated passers of all time through the first 3 or 4 years of his career.
It's just an amazing story. I mean, for a guy that couldn't get on the field at Ohio State for a variety of reasons, and then when he got here, it was a bit of a quarterback battle. I think it was pretty obvious he'd be the guy, to be the starting quarterback. But and then the 2018 season was kind of it didn't get off to the greatest start, and then they won some big games. They beat Georgia that year. They, of course, get all the way to a New Year's Six bowl game. And then 2019 just took off for him, and he has continued to be that. He's just an assassin out there. I mean, he's got that. I'm from the Chicago area. I grew up watching Michael Jordan, and I'm not saying he's Michael Jordan, but he's got that mentality, right? He would take your knee out if he has to win a football game, and there is something about that. You don't see it with too many athletes nowadays, but he has that drive, and there's no reason why he won't live up to this quarterback to this contract unless there's some sort of injury that hampers him.
Well, and he's been injury prone. He hasn't made it through a training camp yet in his career,
right.
And it's not like it's impacted him during the regular season, except for the year he hurt his knee, I think halfway through the season.
Right.
But, I mean, that's always a possibility, and God, you hope it doesn't happen to him because it's really a wonderful story. But let me ask you this, Jeff. The Cincinnati Bengals have been, to a Super Bowl and then back to the AFC title game last year. How are they going to keep the nucleus of their team together, which includes Jamar Chase?
Right. Well, now that's the next thing. We got to see what they do with Jamar Chase. How do they afford to keep him as well? That will be the next big question at this point. But I think Burrow is one of these guys. Granted, it helps having Jamar Chase, but I think he's one of these guys that, or at least I think he is, right? Because in 2019 he had outstanding skill position players. So maybe it would be a challenge if you saw him playing with more of a, maybe more average or just slightly above average receivers instead of, one of the best in the game in Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson and so forth.
Well, I think you make a good point. I think Joe Burrow makes his receivers and the people around him better just because of the type of player he is. But there's no question that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are two of the top wide receivers. And I would obviously rank Chase on top of Higgins, but Higgins is due for a rookie extension, a rookie contract extension. Now he's not a rookie, but it's the first contract extension right now, and then Chase's is coming up at the end of the season. So those are two big decisions the Bengals have to make, and I understand that Joe Burrow was actually contemplating this the entire time he was going through negotiations. So perhaps there's, some cushion saved over, deposited somewhere in some escrow account or something for this to happen. I don't know any of the details.
Yeah. And you hear about the salary cap and this and that. I think salary cap, just look at the Saints every year. They figure out a way, even though they're like $40 million over their salary cap. It's something that you can work around, and they figure out ways to do it. So
well, so I'm trying to figure out why I went into this business instead of coaching women's basketball or being an NFL quarterback.
Well, those are two difficult jobs, though.
But think about it, Jeff, and we got to move on. But on the same day, basically.
Yeah, right.
News breaks that Kim Mulkey is going to be the highest paid. Joe Burrow becomes the highest paid NFL player. 2 LSU products.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. No, it's
maybe that's where Scott Woodward's getting all his money from all these NFL players
maybe that might help. And you look at all the baseball players that are making a ton of cash too at this point. So
Dylan Cruz, Paul Skeens.
Yeah. Well, even the Bregmans, the Kevin Gosmans of the world. I'm sure those guys are forking something back over to the university.
You think Woodward's got their number on his cell phone?
I would think so. And Shaquille O'Neal's, I would imagine. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the home opener, LSU versus Grambling. This is the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast brought to you by Paw Paws Campers and Cars. PawPawsRVs.com, 1-800-728-CAMP, or 1-800-728-2267.
People come from everywhere to Paw Paws Campers and Cars.
All at Paw Paws Campers and Shit is somewhere. Paw Paws Campers and Cars are people.
And we're going to let it go for I forgot.
Take the whole family over to Picayune. We got something for you. All right. What else we going to say?
PawPawsNicePrice.com.
That's probably all we need to say.
Back here on the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast, the home opener for the Tigers Saturday night against the Grambling State Tigers. Jeff Palermo along with Tiger Rag editor Todd Horne. So obviously a disappointing game last Sunday. Todd, what are you looking for Saturday nights when LSU takes on the G-Men?
Well, the G-Men will not have a Doug Williams at quarterback. And
Buck Buchanan's not out there?
Buck Buchanan's not out there. This is not your typical quality of a Grambling football team like they are traditionally. They had a horrible season last year under Hugh Jackson. Supposedly Kelly's trying to convince us that they're a much better team this
Yeah.
year, although they lost to Hampton, who I don't think Hampton has that great.
Yeah, I have no idea what.
I don't think Hampton matches up very well with Florida State or LSU even. But no, what I want to see, Jeff, is I want to see improvement in LSU in the running game. They only had 11 carries for 14 yards, minus Josh Williams' 35-yard scamper against no defense set up on the right side when he made that run. And Jaden Daniels accounted for all the other rushing yards. So I want to see a more dynamic, diversified running game. This is a great way to develop that. I want to see Logan Diggs. Mm-hmm. I want to see him play. I want to see what he's got. I think we can see that Saturday night. I want to see Aaron Anderson catch a punt and possibly put together a couple of returns. I think that's important. And I'm not talking about touchdown returns. I'm just talking about decent punt returns because, once again, against Florida State, LSU was in -3 in terms of returns on punts. And I'd like to see Harold Perkins sack a quarterback a couple times.
Right.
I don't think he'll play much. And, of course, Mason Smith. I think Kelly said he's going to probably get, hopefully, 30 plays. I just want to see him play.
Here's some guys that I'm looking to see play. I want to see Chris Hilton. The former Zachary star, got a lot of speed. Kyron Lacey's dropped enough passes in my mind that maybe it's time for Chris Hilton to emerge as that number 3 wide receiver behind Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas.
Well, Aaron Anderson started in the slot against Florida State.
Well, yeah, but I think certainly Hilton, and Brian Kelly talked about it Thursday night, he deserves more playing time, so let's see it. Shelton Sampson, Coach Kelly said, is not yet ready. That doesn't mean you won't see him maybe Saturday night, but not ready to at least contribute much. I'm interested to see Zalance Hurd get some snaps with the first team. These are all things that Coach Kelly said we would see, so this is what I'm expecting. And then I think Ashton Stamps. Let's see him a little bit more. What did he only get, one play, right? Was it one play?
I don't know the exact
play. It wasn't very much in the Florida State game.
Right.
And I understand, true freshman, you don't want to, that was not the environment to put those guys in. I get it.
What about Denver Harris?
I don't know what the situation is with Denver Harris, and it's very troubling. And I'm not saying LSU's doing anything wrong, because this is a guy that was basically suspended for a half a season at Texas A&M. So there's obviously some character issues there. There's some.
Well, he's not suspended right now.
He's not.
He's available to play.
He's available to play, but if he's not doing what you need to do in order to play, I don't blame the coaches for holding him out. I don't think they're in a desperate situation where they got to let things slide. Because then if you start doing that for one guy, then you got to start doing it for all the other guys. So you're still trying to build a culture here. You're still trying to set a standard for what needs to be done. Now, we don't know what those particulars are that Brian Kelly's looking for. So I don't want them to bend it for him. And I don't think they're going to face too many great wide receiving groups like Florida State had down the road. But hopefully when Denver Harris does what he needs to do to get on the field, he'll be on the field and he'll produce. But if I had a guess, I don't think LSU's asking too much out of the guy.
I don't think they're asking too much out of him either. And like you said, we don't know what the specific details of the situation are. All we know is you've got a 5-star cornerback who is a significant talent that LSU could use. So you'd like to see him, and I'd like to see some more from Lattice Welch too.
Yeah,
he had such a great spring, and I don't know how many plays he got in, but it wasn't a lot. So I'd like to see them. So there's a number of things I'd like to see, but I think this is a good time for LSU to get well, try out some things, expand a little. and get ready to go to Starkville, where you got to get an RV if you're going to go to Starkville from Pawpaw's RVs, because you don't want to stay in a hotel in Starkville.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Want to thank our sponsor once again, Pawpaw's Campers and Cars, pawpawsrvs.com, 1-800-72-CAMP, 1-800-728-2267. So that does it for this edition of the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast. For Todd Horne, I'm Jeff Palermo. Enjoy the game Saturday night, and we'll give you a recap next week.